Hi everyone, my name is Muiz Rafi, and I'm working with Snow Leopard Foundation Pakistan, and I'm managing the conservation education and conservation tourism component. And actually, Dr. Ali, the director of SLF Pakistan, will be joining us soon. So till he joins us, I will be doing the co-pilot's job, and I will be starting with the presentation. Uh, Basically, our presentation is about the development of conservation tourism site in our project valleys, one of the project valleys. And first of all, it is important to, to understand basically the structure or how it works, like it's stairway to conservation tourism site development and nothing to be inspired by Led Zeppelin. But it is important to go by step to understand why and how, or what are the steps to be considered while developing the conservation tourism site. So we'll start with the strategic plan, and basically we have developed a national strategic plan about ecological and socially responsible tourism in snow leopard habitats. This is a 10 years basically plan, and which also linked with the government of Pakistan's commitment to the CBD vision of for the next 2020. Basically, is for 30 years, 2020 to 2050. So we have started with developing this plan for 10 days, 10 years, and then we will move on from there. Uh, uh, Basically, it covers six targets of the agenda of post 2020 CBD agenda, and the, it's that CBD agenda is mainly they have this says that the living in harmony. So basically, it's about the biodiversity, sustaining the biodiversity and the communities. So I will just go through quickly because I have a long list of slides. So I will be just going quickly. This is just reducing the threats to biodiversity and meeting people's needs through sustainable use and benefit sharing. That is a very important aspect of this agenda. And then tools and solutions for implementation and mainstreaming. Well, basically, this strategic plan that we have developed, it will be like a guideline or a guidebook, which eventually will be endorsed by the government of Pakistan and the respective provincial governments. And then it will be circulated or distributed in the respective departments like provincial tourism departments or wildlife departments and the other concerned departments, so that this guidebook or guideline will be used if anyone, any private entity or within the community or the local uh, entity wants to develop a conservation tourism site within the snow leopard habitat. This plan is also ties with the GSLEP component, which is the Pakistan Snow Leopard and Ecosystem Protection Program. It's a 5 years project funded by Jeff. Currently, it's in its third year, and which aims mainly to, it has four components, but one of the important component is reducing or minimizing the human and snow leopard conflicts. And basically development of conservation tourism site is also part of that component, which is aimed to provide livelihood improvement opportunities to the local communities, uh, like with the objective to minimize the conflicts. This strategic plan has the framework. It has four goals, and which has each goal has its objectives. You can see here the positive social impacts, and then it has the three objectives of community engagement, promotion of social and cultural heritage, and benefit sharing. And then out of these four, two are the most important, which are like to assessing the positive impacts and measuring the positive impacts of the conservation tourism, or the impact of uh, tourism or tourist on this most vulnerable habitats, or the fragile habitats, you may say. Now comes after these guidelines. In fact, these I have just shared with you in a couple of slides, but basically all these goals, I'll go back, and these goals have actually, then we have developed roles and responsibilities based on these goals and objectives and their associated activities, which each stakeholder will be responsible to undertake. And it will start with developing the baseline, and then first target, the 2025 targets will be set, and after that the second phase is developing or setting the targets for 2030, and in the end, like the last, just to like evaluations or assessments of the outcome. Now, once we have the guidelines set with the objectives and goals, then comes the most important part, which is criteria for selection of priority snow leopard tourism sites. For this, we have developed a kind of a guide table with the scorings, and which has like if the site has what potential the site has, and does the site have enough potential or characteristics or value to be established as a conservation tourism site or developed as a conservation tourism site. And each has the scoring with that, like ecological values and cultural and tourism products and services, if that particular valley or that village has how much potential they have in terms of so that they can attract more and more tourists, because it is directly linked with the number of tourists visiting that site, and this and that will be directly linked with the livelihood. So socioeconomic situation, accessibility, that is important, accessibility, and especially in like countries like Pakistan, where the snow leopard habitats are basically in a difficult or terrains where the accessibility is a bit challenging, but so that will be considered as well while selecting the site. And the last one is peace and order, which is again very important, that the safety of tourists is like the primary aspect. So it will also be evaluated if that particular site has no issues with the peace and law and order. Or now, once the site has been selected, then comes the risk assessment. Again, it's a very important aspect, that how much risk is there while developing the conservation tourism site, and what will be the negative impacts of tourism in that valley or that village. So for that, there will be two steps for assessment. The one is the environmental and social context, which is like to identify overall the geographical area and source of information about species distribution, threats that should be collected and reviewed. Then the hazards, identify hazards. Basically, all the hazards are linked with unregulated tourism or unmonitored tourist activities. So these are the two main steps which needs to be considered while assessment of risk assessments. These are again, I think we have already discussed in the last session what are the risks related to the tourism. These are which have negative outcomes or which have potential negative outcomes, and the hazards and their negative outcomes like local resources, collection of rare plants, soil erosion. So one, there are the hazards, and in the next column we can see the negative outcome. Here, the important ones are like pollution is one of the important risks. Negative impacts basically that like air pollution, noise, solid waste, and littering. That is the primary area of concern, and that will be focused while assessing the risk for while developing the sites. Then hunting, trapping. Now the social risk are livelihoods and culture, health. Culture is because these are very conservative communities in snow leopard habitats, and therefore they need to be, like focused on how to sustain their cultural values, and if there is not any interventions which may lead to, like any kind of any threats or uh, you may say the sensitivities of their culture and traditions. Then for assessment of these risks, there's a matrix which has a scoring for assessment of risk for each component, which we saw in the last table. And that score is from minimum from 1 to the higher side on number 5. We have points. So there are total 5 points for severity and likelihood. So if the suppose if any component has a very high severity, so it will be given 5 points, and likelihood that if that damage or that negative impact, how much is likely to be occurred. So if there are least likelihoods, it will be given 1 to onward the higher side, and similarly on the severity again, if it's a very minor negative impacts and its likelihood is on the lower side, and then we will be multiplied, severity will be multiplied by likelihood, and that will give us the risk rating. Now we come to the development of tourism site. We, as a pilot project, we selected Hooper, which is located in District Nagar in Gilgit-Baltistan, as the first conservation site. And this PSLAP project, it is one of the components and outcome that to enhance the livelihood of local communities through different interventions based on development of tourism sites and enterprise development. So we selected Hooper as our pilot project because Hooper has already has a great potential of tourism, and many tourists already visiting this valley. But again, there was no proper infrastructure or any facilities for the tourists. So again, this beautiful valley was vulnerable and highly vulnerable for the negative impacts of the tourism. So we selected Hooper as our pilot project, and again in Karakoram, we have 4 other valleys lined up, which we are already started working on other 2, Bagrot and Rupal, and then we are also working in Himalaya, where it's a Gurez, in Gurez Valley, which is Taobat. Now, why we selected Hooper? Basically, Hooper, we call it land of peaks and glaciers because this valley has more than 7,000 and above peaks, and also it has you can see the glaciers here. So it has a network of glaciers, so it is called the land of peaks and glaciers. And also the Rush Lake, which is the highest lake in Pakistan, is about 7,000 meters. And it's a great like attraction for the tourists, but obviously it's a 4 days trekking to Rush Lake, so only the hardcore tourists they like to visit, and they come in large numbers every year. And here you can also see in the valley the snow leopard density, and it's a it's a prime area for snow leopard and other species. But again, this is a core zone, and we have done these donations so that the wildlife, and especially the snow leopards, uh, we just keep the tourists away from the area where snow leopard and the other species are present. Then, apart from this peaks and uh, glaciers, the other features, it's rich with culture and traditions and other fruits. Now, how we started with developing this site. The first step was we identified this site, this valley, and then we started with the meeting with the local community, and just to provide them awareness and the importance of developing the site in their valley. So there were consultative meetings with them, and finally they were convinced, and so that um, for after the consultation meetings, local ecotourism management committee was formed, which comprised of local community elders and their prominent people, selected by themselves as a group of elders and people who can influence the rest of the community. Then we conducted the workshop and trainings. We started with the awareness workshop for all the four valleys community people. And particularly then we had a tour guide training workshop at Hooper. And after that, we also had a training on the local the housekeeping and camping management skills. After the trainings, the formal groundbreaking ceremony was held, and the Special Assistant to Prime Minister, Mr. Amin Aslam, he honored the occasion, and he was present there on the groundbreaking ceremony, and we had started working on the three facilities, which were Tourist Information Center, glamping site, and glacier watching point. Well, this work is still in progress, but it's almost there. We are there, and it's in the finishing stages. But due to the weather and the snow, the work was stopped. So perhaps it's going to restart next month. So on the left side, you can see there's a glacier watching point, which is developed on the top of a mountain, and it's like a 20 minutes walk from the village. And there's an information center which has a souvenir shop and the tour guide facilities and a display, exhibit display, which will depict the wildlife and the biological features and natural features of this valley. And then on the right side, you can see the camping site and the glamping huts. Now, how the site will be operated. So first, we just formed the management committee, tourism management committee, and then we there was and this site has been developed in guidance and support and assistance of Sustainable Tourism Foundation. Mr. Aftab Rana is the president of STFP, and he's been very kind in guiding us and assisting us in developing this tourism site. And then all the facilities will be run by the locals, and again STFP will provide the trainings and capacity building of the local people. And initially STFP will help them running the site, all the facilities, and then eventually they will be on their own. And then they have developed a mechanism of how the income or the revenue generated will be divided or will be uh, dispersed. So uh, the 30% of the profit will go in a joint fund, conservation fund, which then further will be dispersed on the priority needs of the community for development or any conservation activity. These are few promotional materials that we have developed for this conservation tourism sites. This one is about the mammals of Central Karakoram National Park, basically Hooper Falls in CKNP. And then these are the posters about the features of Hooper. Then we have also developed posters of species. This is a series of posters. Then this is a promotional brochure which has packages. And this Camp Leo, the glamping site, we have called it Camp Leo. These are the packages which we offered. They are just here, a couple of the packages I have put here, but there are about 5 or 6 different packages, tour packages for tourists, ranging from 1-day trip to like 7 days or 15 days trip. Then the most important do's and don'ts for tourists. This will also be translated in other local languages. And this is part of the brochure and the other branding and promotional material. So that's about it. The site is likely to be finished by mid of April and will be launched by end of April or first week of May. Thank you.